What is the dumbest thing you did because you were horny? When I was a kid, my dad would frequently take me to his job and give me meaningless tasks to help him out. He was a property manager for a secure gov building, federal guards at the doors, etc. Anyways, he had his office in the basement and was left alone down there by everyone else in the building. He would smoke cigarettes down there, blast music, etc. When I was 13, I went with him to work one day and he gave me the job of using an electric sander to take grime off of copper pipes in one of the machine rooms. I was left alone to my task for hours, and about an hour in, I realized how incredibly powerful the vibration was on the sander. One thing led to another and I ended up grinding the handle of the sander on my. After I finished, I remember even at 13 saying to myself, "You're really weird, dude." Never told anyone, till now. Before I read the comments, I thought, wow, I have a story, but I didn't want to comment because I thought I'd be one in a million. Well, looks like someone has done the exact same thing as me, except the only differences are I'm a girl, and it was in my own bedroom when I realized the powerful vibrations of the sander after using it to sand down my walls prior to painting them. I'm sure you can guess what happened next. I too thought to myself afterwards, "You're mad weird, Lamau, never again." Paid for a subscription that I didn't realize I was still paying for until 1.5 years later, $1,135 for one orgasm. I would pay for the 3-day trial, cancel it immediately, and then download as much of their content as I could. About 5 years ago, I found my old PC in storage. It was filled with so much early OOEs. You know, back when the cameraman would talk through the entire scene. They were all in 480p, so I ended up just deleting all of them except a few selected ones you can't find on the streaming sites anymore. Tried to choke myself with a towel. Woke up in a hospital with my mum beside me. I almost fainted from this, and it was even Yule. I had a towel around my neck. I had just washed my face and looking in the mirror before I dry it. Then with the towel on my face, I tightened it. I noticed my face got a little red. Then I did for like 5 more seconds and I couldn't feel my knees, like I was starting to faint, then released quickly. Like when I released, I was already with bent knees and then just laid on the floor thinking I'm dumb. Drove 4 hours to the beach to camp with a buddy of mine. He stood me up and ghosted me. The icing on the cake was losing my keys in the sand and having to pay $300 for a new set to be cut. Oof, I had a similar thing happen with the keys. Got drunk if going mudding and racing 4-wheelers and beaters. Wrecked one beater Jeep taking a curve too fast, flying off the edge, and tumbling it down a hill. Someone's 4-wheeler apparently ended up being sacrificed to the lake. Woke up the next morning and I had everything but my vehicle's keys. I tried to find them for like an hour but gave up because there's probably no way they would be found. Was pretty low on cash and my only meals until next paycheck were free meals from work and friends after getting a same-day service to get into my car. By the way, the beaters in question were free to $500, Thai vehicles on their last leg that people just wanted out of their yards. Underage. Many years ago, me and my current wife were very little horny people. We used to go have under this highway underpass a little off the beaten path because our parents were always home. Well, it was also near a community center type building. One day when we were walking through the woods to get there, someone thought they seen a man abducting a child. My wife has always been very short. Yes, it was me. We are the same age, just have a crazy height difference, and I have had a beard from a young age, haha. Anyways, long story long, I was getting a BJ and a cop came down to the underpass from the highway up above and yelled freeze. Let me tell you, we both froze. She wouldn't move and had her face covered with my still in her mouth. Then the cop just yelled at us saying, "Can't you guys be doing this at home?" said he. Could see I wasn't underage and told us about the call. It was the most embarrassing thing to ever happen. We didn't even bring it up again for a few years. Now we are married and it is a funny memory. We even went back there to mess around a year ago. Several years back, a woman I had been flirting with called me in the middle of the night one time because she wasn't feeling well and asked if I could pick up some medicine and bring it to her place. Went to her place not expecting too much other than maybe earning some brownie points for dropping off the meds. Anyway, she invites me in and asks if I could spend the night with her. That of course gets me all titillated. However, by the time we get into bed, she's all tired and drowsy despite her best attempt at acting seductive. Next thing I know, I'm lying in bed next to her with my arm pinned under her body while she's snoring away and farting. I end up lying like that for the rest of the night. Got maybe 30 minutes of sleep that entire night, and of course I then had to get up to work a whole shift in the morning. At least I did earn some brownie points for that become we ended up dating for not quite a year afterwards. Had something similar happen 30 years ago. I went to the bar one night for a beer. I spotted one of my old girlfriends there sitting at a table with a bunch of foreign sailors. She looked like she was tripped out and not all there. I got her up on the dance floor and asked if she was okay. She said she wasn't, so I waltzed her to the fire exit and took her home. I suspected they had slipped a roofie or something in her drink. I sat up by her bed all night to make sure she was okay. She was fine in the morning and remembered enough about the night before that I didn't have to do any explaining. I also had to work after. That part wasn't any fun either. Decided to masturbate into a urinal because I was bored and horny studying for finals when I was in college. I studied in an empty classroom in the creepiest old building on campus so that I could be completely focused and not be distracted. I hadn't seen anybody in that building for 3 hours, so I didn't feel the need to lock the bathroom door or do my business in a stall like a normal person. So I'm going to town on myself, and suddenly the bathroom door opens and I stop mid-fap. Foreskin noises stop suddenly. I just stood there holding my erect for a second, put it back in and leave without making eye contact. Still have no idea who that person was, but they definitely knew what I was doing and that I'm being weird. Girl offered to jerk me off if I let her copy my answers off of one of our finals. I thought it was going to be sometime after, but nope, it was right there during a lecture. Being a typical young guy, of course, I wasn't gonna reject the offer. Still surprised to this day we weren't caught. My damn tea reminds me of my college days. I and my then girlfriend used to sit on last benches in random professors' classes, filling out attendance proxies for random absent students, and we would go wild on the last bench. I used to finger her aggressively to the point where she no longer can keep a poker face and squirted, and she once blew me during a ing French 3 Kel. French 3 was taught in French. No, we didn't know a word of French. I almost jerked off while driving down the highway once, but then I thought if they found my mangled corpse in the wreck with my hand around my family would be really disappointed. So my brain won that battle. I know this comment will get buried under the 1,000 others, but I have to say just holy. I am well into adulthood at this point and have yet to get my driver's license due to complications in youth and a fear I'm not responsible, vigilant enough to be in charge of hundreds of pounds to tons of steel careening down the road. And you're telling me I've been sharing the road as a passenger, pedestrian with people like this all along? I'm assume you were mostly alone in this road at the time of your story, but it may have taught me something today. I haven't decided if it's a good something or a bad something. Worst case, I think it may be both. Either way, thank you, I think. Jerked off in principal's office to his daughter's picture. My principal had an adopted daughter about 5 years older than me. After school, she'd hang out in his office while he did whatever business he had, like meetings, etc. One day she had pinned up on the desk with some guy. Word got around. Huge scandal, talked about for years after. She died of a drug overdose a few years after her graduation. I feel sorry for him. The principal was a genuinely good man and did his best. I got caught for drug-related offenses while in H's, and you could see the pain in his eyes seeing another kid going down a similar path when I was in his office. I wonder how he's doing now. He's retired, but I should look him up. They still had the same desk when I graduated. Nice piece of furniture. Hardwood, very sturdy. I was talking about this the other day, lol. I once walked 3 miles at 2 a.m. during a snowstorm at -3-degree temperatures when my girlfriend called and said that her parents were gone for the weekend. The things a horny 16-year-old kid will do to get laid. Man, I did this same at 16. Lol. I had a camo hunting jacket on, layered up real good. About a mile from her house, I saw a cop had someone pulled over, so I ducked into the woods. The town had a strict curfew for minors, and I had already gotten chewed out by them for these same antics. So I crawled through brush and snow through the woods past the cop. Then I fell into the damn creek. My feet and part of my torso were soaked in freezing creek water. Realizing I really ate up and I could definitely get hypothermia, I booked it the rest of the way to my girlfriend's house. Snuck in as quietly as possible, holding as much of my clothes as I could. By now, adrenaline has overtook my hormone-filled self and I was ready to go. I felt victorious and that I'd never worked that hard for Y time ever before. And she said, "I'm not really in the mood anymore, Sugal." Peeped on my sister's best friend showering. I was 12. It's an extremely cringe memory that haunts me when I try to sleep at night. If I'd known the amount of torment it'd cause me in the future, I would have just watched some damn female. I think maybe you should work towards forgiving yourself. You know what you did was wrong. You're not gonna do it again. What do we accomplish besides beating yourself up? This is what guilty feelings are for, and it's okay to recognize when we wronged other people, but also recognize that our ability to influence the world outpaces our ability to understand how morals should guide that influence. You were immature, a different person. We don't think bread is bad if it wasn't pleasant when it was still dough. Why would we think a person is bad because what they were when they were a child? And bear in mind that you may meet somebody who torments themselves for the same reason. Would you condemn that person? Or are you in a unique position to say to that person, "I understand. It's okay. That's behind you now." If you would forgive that person, why can't you forgive yourself? You're on team Don't Peep. Be good to the people on your team. That includes you. Self-forgiveness takes patience and practice. You would have to meditate and learn to accept your thoughts without judgment, comment on them objectively. So when the thought intrudes, instead of ruminating on it, you say, "No, that was the past. I didn't know then what I know now," and allow yourself to move on. Some other people have already mentioned forgiving yourself. If it's forgiveness you seek, then that's definitely worth your time. I just wanted to add that if it's not forgiveness and you're just trying to forget an embarrassing moment, then try deliberately remembering it under different context. The reason you associate the feeling of embarrassment with the memory is because you keep remembering it that way. It won't stop unless you can move it away from that physical spot in your brain. It's a bit of nuanced science, but many psychologists have seen successful results in people living with PTSD when they employ the same strategy in a process called EMDR. Feel free to look it up. I've personally benefited from it myself. As someone who remembers quite literally everything, I've been able to get rid of the extremely embarrassing feeling associated with a lot of my memories. Stayed with my ex-wife despite 3 cheating incidents. At that time, I felt it was better than being alone. I don't know how I feel about it now. Dude, the things you wrote truly worry me. Please speak to someone. There's probably plenty of people out there that would be glad to be with you. The most common error men make is thinking all women want the same. We don't. I've been told many times that my boyfriends are too ugly for me. It really bothers me because looks aren't important to me at all. Is not only insulting to my partner but also to me. That is what I'm looking for in a partner, and I know I'm not the only one. Please, please, please work on your self-esteem. When you feel good with yourself and no longer feel like you need someone to be happy, I promise you the partner you are looking for will appear. Just please don't think you're destined to be alone. There's no such thing. Is all you. There's someone out there, more than one person probably, that is perfect for you. Just work on being your best self so that when you meet them you'll be ready for the relationship. Good luck. Sent my pie to an account and they threatened me that if I didn't give them $300 they'd leak it. I sent them my pie again. I don't care if Thwai would leak it. Lamau. Reminds me to a story about how multiple people attempted to blackmail Sukarno, first Indonesian president. Sukarno was known as a womanizer. Both the CIA and the KGB attempted to use this against him, but to their chagrin, he was not ashamed of this reputation, but proud of it, so the attempts were less than effective. In one occasion, the Soviets managed to entrap him with one of their appropriately very attractive agents and secretly filmed the deed. Supposedly, when confronted with the tape, he was delighted and asked for copies. It's obviously difficult to confirm how much this is real outside the testimonies of individual people, but all accounts agree that Sukarno was the type to react the way the legend claims. And the stories are fun. I had it so bad for this Chinese girl at university back in 2004, and she would not give me the time of day. I did everything I possibly could. Then, in a moment of insane desperation and browsing during the earlier days of the internet, I found some sort of self-proclaimed wizard living in California who specialized in love spells, and I not. My 20-year-old brain thought it was a good idea to send said wizard $200 USD to cast the spell. Suffice it to say, the spell did not work. To this day, I still can't believe how stupid I was. Male hormones are ridiculous things. Drove in 115 each way for 4 minutes of. Her odor was so bad I couldn't continue. I've had this happen. This random chick messaged me on POF asking if I wanted to come over at 2 a.m. Stupid horny 19 years old me decided to jump into my Jeep and do 180 kilometers per hour the entire way. We start making out, and right away I notice her breath is bad. Like the Boy Scout I pressed on. Things worked into her giving me a dry hand job with extra special attention to the head. It was agony. She actually gave me a friction burn on the top of my littler feller. She was so terrible at it. Finally, took her panties off and quite literally gagged at the smell. The stench of BO, a freshly opened can of tuna, and piss just emanated from her jungle bush. I turned right around and drove the 2 hours back home at 4 o'clock a.m. completely defeated. Sometimes coochies don't smell great. No judgment there. This smell, however, was clearly from piss-poor hygiene. The experience has made me super anxious when things get frisky with a new girl. Never know if I'm going to be welcomed to the swamps of Dagobah again or not. TLDR, drove 2 hours to have a lady give my wiener turf burn. Got to smell her stink factory. A 10th, don't recommend. Climbed into a friend's bed in the middle of the night without any discussion of it whatsoever. I still regret it to this day and feel like a sleaze bag. He asked me to leave. I had a quick look at your profile because I could have sworn you were a friend of mine, but no, you're too young. She did the exact same thing to me. I didn't kick her out, but I pretended that I thought she just wanted to cuddle. I knew what she really wanted, but she was too shy. She was going through stuff, so I didn't take advantage. Teenage me was mad about her though, not sure where I found the fortitude that night. To this day, we are still great friends and we've never spoken of it. Drove almost 2 hours to have. I once stole my brother's car, went on a road trip with my friend to visit some girl I met online. My brother was and deserved it. Stupidest thing I'd ever done. At one point, the car broke down in the middle of nowhere and we were completely stranded. But then, out of nowhere, this Amish guy showed up and fixed our car with nothing but his bare hands and some tools. It was honestly one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. That guy kinda looked like Seth Green. Really sarcastic guy. Never knew if he was joking or not. Never pee in the radiator, FYI. Yeah, I almost got myself shot before the end of it all. Jerked off with some heated lotion like Isahat. D1 CAC burned so bad for days. Also jacked off in the bath once not thinking because I was a dumb kid. Got done and it was stuck to my whole body and was crusty like a old gym sock. Also wore a shirt to school I had whacked off on and didn't notice. The my baby sauce was all over it. That actually happened twice. I was a dirty teenager, I guess. There was a guy like that in my first year in college. Had a baby a few months before the semester started. He was an overweight ginger with a Viking beard and a love of ball caps and heavy metal shirts. Showed up one day with like a giant spider web of oddly colored crustiness on his back shoulder. He was bragging he barely made it to campus because his girlfriend was finally in the mood months after giving birth and had been at it on and off since last night. Politely pointed out he may have put on an old shirt from last night this morning, and he went paler as it dawned on him. Then he shrugged and said it was probably him blowing his nose in the middle of the night and continued bragging. I was freshly out of a relationship with my abusive ex and I just wanted the first after him to not mean anything and not be with anyone important nor anyone I'd meet again. So I went on this anonymous dating site for hookups local to my region and just went with the first, the best person. Off I went to the capital without telling anyone at all where I was going or with whom. We met at a station in the outskirts of a suburb. I got into his car and he took me to a parking lot close to the airport. We had in the back where he had folded down his back seat and then he drove me back to the main train station. I did some shopping for new underwear, went to a toilet and changed into fresh underwear, freshened up, and then took the train back to arrive at church in time for rehearsal in my church choir. I don't know his name or anything. Couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Super dangerous. I could have been abducted or Ed. Put my in crazy. Mate, I did this the other week. I like a bit of excitement in my life, so I tend to gravitate toward the more freaky kind of girls. It's always been like this since I was a teen. I think I probably have some issues too, but this time was so Ed I swore I'd never go for crazy again. That was amazing, but I think that's why I got myself into this problem. I've learned now. Over the course of 6 hours, she'd told a homeless man to go himself, screamed out of my car window saying she was kidnapped and to call 000, tried to jump out of my car as I was going 80 km on a freeway driving her back to where she lived, and damaged my car by opening the door again whilst I was moving. Eventually, her mum came over to my place. I dropped her at her mum's house where she was living. The girl had a mark on her neck because when she tried to jump out of the car, I must have grabbed her by the necklace. This definitely saved her life, by the way. Like I said, I was doing 80 on a highway. She told her mum I had abused her, and her mum started throwing punches at me at my doorstep. The girl then comes running down the driveway with her phone out screaming, "Lifia Fuato, I have you on camera assaulting my mother." The mother was a lot smaller than I am, so all I did was block her swings, and I probably grabbed her wrists out in front of her at some point to stop her attacking me. Again, this all happened at my front door, so at no point have I been worried about what happens to that footage. Who would attack someone at their own front door? Anyway, I was a bit of a wreck after that night. I couldn't believe it. I've dealt with some crazy and mentally challenged people in my life, but this was a whole new level. This felt like pure evil. I'm still not over it, and it's probably been about a month. So yeah, crazy is absolutely not worth it. She just went on trial for stabbing a man 12 times and Wally assaulting him with a bleach-covered broom handle. This all happened before we'd met. I think I somehow dodged a bullet here. Holy. When I was a teenager, I stuck my hands up an incredibly attractive girl's shirt that I really wanted to bone with her permission and felt her boobies, nipples, and everything. It was intense. Then afterwards, I peeped down her shirt to see her boobs. I hadn't seen many real-life titties at that point. The problem? It was in the middle of high school, in the middle of the hall, around everyone in the hall, including teachers. We did not get caught, but came damn close to it. I was an idiot for not asking her if we could go somewhere more private for this. But I wanted to see her titties so badly I didn't even think of the consequences. I then proceeded to go to the bathroom to masturbate incessantly because I couldn't have with her. She wouldn't want it anyway. She let me see her titties, but she didn't want me. Connected with a friend's ex who I knew had feelings for me. Went to catch up over lunch, ended up spending all day drinking with her, then fingered her at the outdoor area of an absolutely packed bar. Neither of us were staying in places we could have people spend the night, so hired a late hotel room. Get in the door, she immediately vomits all over the room and spent the next 2 hours crying on the floor saying she loved me while I did my best to clean up. Whoops. I was dating a girl at work, and we would regularly have at her side of our business complex. Though she was part of the same company, she was part of a separate regional division and not part of corporate, so her office was typically always empty besides her. One time we were really hot and heavy into it inside the restroom, and against our better judgment we decided anal was a good idea. So we did our thing, and I blew the biggest, deepest load into her imaginable. As I pulled out, there was a fair amount of poop on my surprise anal and all, and I walk over to the sink to try and wash it off. As I'm rinsing myself into the sink, we hear the door to her office open and a large group of co-workers walk in. I panic and immediately try to put my away, and as I drop from my tiptoes, I slam my nutsack up against the wall of the sink and pull my taint skin so hard I almost buckled in pain. She runs out of the restroom and closes the door behind her, and I'm sitting in the dark on the toilet seat with on my and balls hurting contemplating my life choices.